We really need to get off this line of topic.
Yes.
But the only other thing that I thought about is I was trying to figure out what had been used in something akin to like a ball gag.
I don't think so, because the amount of tightness that you would have to achieve to actually strangle someone with a ball gag would likely leave
I don't
marks on their
mean
face.
the official, the kind that you can
you
buy
mean
at
just, like,
Adam
shove
and
a ball
Eve.
down their
Just
throat?
something like that was used as a gag is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, why not a plunger?
Mm-hmm. Or a super ball or something like that. I mean, it's something that's large enough to go in, but that's
But then
again,
you have to have a way to get it back out.
Heimlich. But let's move on.
You tie
It's all
a string to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like a coin,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Or paddle ball.
Ew.
Yeah.
Ew. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on. Talk about the investigation a little
Yes, let's do that.
bit. The lead investigator on the case was Chief Superintendent of Scotland Yard at the time. That was John DeRose. And it's reported that the investigative team interviewed 7,000 suspects. The population of London at the time was about 8 million. So that's like almost 1% of the population.
Yeah, it's a lot of people.
Almost.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people.
It really is. They really didn't like having to investigate that many people.
They really didn't.
They were really peeved.
So out of the 7,000, they identified 20 actual suspects, and then they halved that, and then finally whittled it down to 3 people they thought. But DeRose had a favorite suspect, and he talked about that in the media. And we'll talk about that in the suspects/theories. And one quick note to mention before we really get too far into theories/suspects is Kenneth Archibald. He was a 57-year-old caretaker, and he actually confessed to the murder of Irene Lockwood almost 3 weeks after she was found. But his confession was pretty much dismissed because the police thought that there were a lot of inconsistencies with his version of the events. But then also they found a third victim.
They started to take him to trial.
They did, and then this other victim showed up, and then they actually listened to what he was saying and thought, wait, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that
and
doesn't
just
match up.
Totally dismissed it. So we won't take him into serious consideration, but that's the sort of thing that you'll see around. And then I guess the other, I don't understand the mindset of that really.
Confessing the crimes you didn't commit.
Yeah, especially one like that. It's not as though it's not my understanding that police looked at him and they were like, oh, it was definitely you, and pressured him into a confession. It was my impression that he just kind of came forward.
There are a lot of people who do that, and there is a myriad of reasons that they confess, whether it be to, because they have some mental affliction that they've convinced themselves, or they just want the attention, or they want a place with 3 squares and a warm blanket.
There's always that.
Well, he was a caretaker. I mean, he had a job.
Well,
and a family.
Maybe he didn't like his job, and this was easier. Going and sitting in the pokey is much easier.
Well,
maybe as a serial killer. Actually, it turns out no, because if you're over 16, you get convicted of more than 2 murders, you get put to death.
Oh, not in Britain.
Yeah, in Britain.
Not today, probably.
And not today, but in the 60s.
The Brits don't kill anybody.
In the 60s, they were still the hangman noose. Yeah.
Okay.
They still killed people.
It is possible that this guy actually did kill her.
I mean, yeah, it's possible.
He also could have been one of her Johns, and had some connection to her. But again, this is pure speculation.
Yeah, absolutely.
The point is, he's not responsible.
No, he's definitely not.
I know I said it before, but the key to being a good murderer is to go around confessing to murders you didn't commit, and until you just develop this reputation as a crank. And
then go on a spree,
and then go kill somebody and confess to it, and they'll just roll their eyes and show you the door.
Yeah. Oh, this guy again.
Yeah.
Oh, great, it's Joe again.
Actually, pretty soon they get fed up and they just throw me in the pokey for one of the murders. So I don't care if you committed it or not. I'm locking
You sure
this guy
did
up.
now.
Yeah, I'm sure that there would be some crime they would convict you of, if nothing else, of obstruction of justice or something. Some random old school law of getting in the way.
Yeah.
Okay, so theories, suspects, everything.
Theories.
Yeah, I mean, there's 7,000 suspects, so we better get started. I mean, we're 40 minutes into this show.
Yeah, you better settle in, folks. Go to the bathroom, get yourself another drink.
Yeah. All right, 7,000. You guys ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Just kidding.
I have the stadium, pal. I'm ready.
All right, so let's start with Chief Inspector DeRose's favorite, who he called Big John.
Yeah, not his real name.
Not his real name.
No,
Actually, not like nothing to do with his real name at all.
I'm pretty sure that the name John is in reference to being a John.
Mm-hmm. I think that's probably true. Big John's real name was Mungo Ireland. DeRose revealed that Ireland had been identified as a suspect shortly after the murder of Bridget O'Hara. The paint flecks that were similar to those found on most of the bodies were found on Mr. Ireland. I believe that he was actually the security guard at that painting facility garage.
Actually, what I read is that he actually was a security guard who drove around in a van and checked on various businesses.
Right. I should have clarified that he was a security guard for many of these places,
including the place and also he kept his car in a garage too.
Mm-hmm.
His shift, by the way, was 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. if I recall right.
So he's working a late shift.
Third shift, yeah, and apparently all of these women disappeared between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. And their bodies were dumped between 5 and 6 a.m. Mm-hmm. So that's one reason he looked really good as a suspect.
Yeah, and because he had access to a lot of the places, and it was kind of on his beat. And there was that interview from that book. Whoa, what was the book called?
Yeah.
And there was that interview with Ireland.
Yeah.
Where he he had a car. One of the places that he did security was that garage. That the name is escaping me. I'm really sorry.
I've heard it described. Oh, see, the Wimpy Autos.
Yeah, that was like also a club, kind of maybe.
I don't think it was really a club, but I think certain activities went on in there from time to time. They did actually. Some of the people that worked there actually were known to go back there with prostitutes at least once.
Yeah. So it was kind of a shady business, and he admitted to having connections there and being friends with some of the people who owned it, maybe. Or I think he said he'd gone around for tea every once in a while or something.
Yeah, and then I think some of the other stuff is that, besides the paint flakes and all that stuff, according to the police, his car's registration number was among those that were seen by the police in the area where the murder picked up his victims.
Because they had been putting up roadblocks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because there's only a certain number of roads that went in and out of the area that the bodies were showing up. So they were counting cars coming in and out, and recording them.
Yeah.
And if you went in and out, went in and came back out over a certain time frame at night, they put you on a red list.
Yeah. Which is, it's that one's hard because he was a security guard. He did technically have legitimate business in that area.
That's what his job was.
Sure.
That's what his job was, but also that's suspicious, I guess.
Yeah, I know.
But the thing that I want to point out that Joe brought up is that we believe that the women were picked up between a certain amount of time, and that the bodies tended to be dumped around a certain amount of time. But that's really thin.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They are working the streets at night, so we know they're picked up at night. But the bodies could have been dropped in a number of these locations at midnight or at 5 in the morning. So that's one of the things that they used to tie it to Ireland and to not John Mungo. I was about to call him John Ireland, which is wrong.
Yeah.
Big John, Mungo Ireland. So to Mungo is that because of this time frame, but that's really not all that strong.
Well, no, the thing about it is Mungo is a really good suspect, and that's why John DeRose, was convinced that it was him.
Yeah.
Because after his suicide, the killing stopped.
Conveniently.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
But anyway, they were never actually conclusively able to tie the murders to him at all. I mean, they were never able to prove a thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about his suicide.
Yeah, let's talk about his suicide. So
and I want to know when it was.
It was 1965. I don't have an exact date.
Okay, I was going to ask if either of you found that, because I never could find it.
And
I have not found it either.
I mostly see it as right after the discovery of Bridget O'Hara's body, but then other places see it right before the discovery of Bridget O'Hara's body. So I don't know.
I heard that it was actually the precipitating event for it was that the police had apparently been making some inquiries, and apparently they had examined the garage where he kept his car or van or whatever, and found all those things, like paint, coal dust, and stuff like that, like they found
because
on the bodies.
He went through the place where they believed it was all originating from.
Yeah, and so when he apparently found out that they had been to that garage and made a very minute examination of it, when he found that out, he realized that it was kind of near the end for him.
But I mean, the thing is it's all speculation.
It is.
His suicide note. I will read what it said.
It was not too specific.
It was not specific at all, and it's total speculation that we're just foisting on this guy. His suicide note to his wife. He committed suicide by carbon monoxide poisoning.
He sat in the garage with the window down and the car going.
Yep.
And went to sleep.
And he said, quote, "I can't stick it any longer. To save you and the police looking for me, I'll be in the garage," unquote. And actually one of the other big issues with the idea that it was maybe Ireland is that they actually thought that maybe he was in Scotland when Bridget O'Hara was being murdered. Not actually in London, which that would obviously be a problem.
That would be a problem.
Yeah, if you're not in the country,
Yeah.
that's a big issue.
Yeah.
Although, again, according to Jack the Jumper, and I'm not saying this guy's omniscient, but apparently the police inquiries had established that he was in London during every period when somebody was murdered.
Yeah, again, it's hard to tell.
Yeah,
They were never able to question him because he killed himself before they were able to question him.
And they also,
except
again,
for that one small interview.
As we said before, though, we also don't know exactly when they disappeared. So maybe the guy, the author of Jack the Jumper, decided, well, this person had to have been kidnapped beforehand. I mean,
It's hard to tell.
it's speculation.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the other... There's always, with all of these serial murders, it's always possible that at least one or two of them are the work of a copycat.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with one that was they weren't exactly withholding details in the press about this and how the women were murdered. So it's certainly possible that, Ireland was responsible for some of them and not all of them or whatever. But he was the chief superintendent, DeRose. He was his favorite suspect.
And he's a good suspect, I must admit. But it's far from proven.
Okay.
All right, okay.
Next up, Freddie Mills. Do you guys know who Freddie Mills is?
I do now.
Yeah. Freddie Mills was the world light heavyweight champion in boxing from 1948 to 1950. I guess I didn't realize that light heavyweight was a thing.
I was going to say, am I the only one who was confused by that
I looked it up.
name?
I actually looked it up, and it's the lightest division of the heavyweight.
I understand it.
So I think it's 150 to 170 pounds or something.
How many stones is that?
I don't know.
Okay.
That's like 27 stones.
That's like at least 200 stones.
Yeah. How big are the stones?
Yeah, I don't know. What are they? Pebbles? Are they like giant things? I don't know.
I love antique British weight systems. Sorry.
Yeah.
So he was a pretty prominent figure at the time. He was the boxing champion, world boxing champion. He owned a club that had previously been a restaurant, in case anybody's gonna freak out about that. And he actually began acting a little bit too. He hosted some TV shows.
He was kind of an up and comer.
He did some walk-ons. He was just doing his thing.
It's very similar to, say,
Donald Trump.
O.J. Simpson at the end of his football career. He started coming on.
He made a couple of movies.
But then TV shows.
I would say more like Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Yeah, and then that's a good one.
Well, but he actually made it.
But the thing of difference. Yeah, OJ, and then OJ got framed for murder by the LAPD. You remember that?
I remember that. Yeah, they definitely haven't found anything from his house recently or anything like that.
No, not at all.
By the time this episode comes out, that's going to be old news, and
Yeah,
it would be
it
like,
is.
obviously it was beep.
Yeah. The nightclub that he owned was frequented by some fairly seedy people, most notably the Cray twins,
Yeah,
who
these
were
guys.
Ronnie and Reggie. And I actually wasted a stupid amount of time doing some research on them. They're super interesting. Could even be a subject of their own podcast, maybe.
I was going to say,
There are some unsolved mysteries around them.
I've
Yeah.
heard of the Cray twins. I can't remember what their name is definitely familiar.
oh yeah, they're very familiar, and there's a movie that came out recently about
There is, yeah.
I
And
haven't seen
actually,
it
we
yet,
literally
but-
just got a suggestion today about somebody who was like, I was doing some research on the Cray twins, and I was like, yeah, I know, it's crazy. And I guess if you have, without going too far into it, I guess I would say they were like twin Al Capones. They were famous
They're
for
brothers.
being gangsters.
Yep.
That was like their thing.
Yeah.
They were the beginnings of organized crime in Britain.
I don't know if they were the beginnings of it.
Well, they were the ones who were the best in organization.
Yeah.
In terms of like they weren't just running around rampant.
I'm telling you,
they
were
had
like
things
Al Capones.
together, and they were all over the place.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They were like
Every pie.
Yeah. Anyway, Freddie was friends, quote unquote, with the Cray twins, kind of, and things kind of predictably went downhill. It's reported that he suffered from headaches later in his boxing career that continued on after he quit.
Not
shocking.
Uncommon for
Totally
guys who
shocking.
are in that profession. Yeah.
Who get hit a lot in the head and face. Yeah, I don't know why that might happen. But he was really in debt to his quote-unquote friends, the Crays, and that of his family. He had a wife and 2 daughters. So Freddie Mills committed suicide, which seems accepted, but
you say that as if we don't know if he really did it
Well,
himself or without help or under
it's hard,
duress.
So it's hard for me because, I didn't like research too much because I didn't want this show to be about the suicide on Freddie Mills, but he went out back of his club to take a nap in the car, which he did a lot apparently, and also he had been borrowing a not working rifle from a friend that got repaired apparently, so it was working, and it was found outside of his car, and the police said, oh no, this gunshot wound is consistent with a self-inflicted wound from this rifle, but without reading too much into it, I'm not satisfied by that.
How long was the barrel on the rifle?
I don't know. I have no idea. Like I said, I didn't do that much research into it.
Okay. I'm overly
curious.
curious.
It was my general impression that I did not offhandedly immediately accept it, that it was a suicide.
Sure.
But the reading of all of the research that I did didn't necessarily explicitly say, like, a contested suicide. They just said, he committed suicide.
Okay, so why is Freddie on this list?
Yeah. Well, if you stop interrupting me, I tell you.
Yeah, come on, let her talk.
Yeah, jeez.
As you're blathering on about a rifle.
So it actually wasn't until after his death in 1965 that these negative rumors started to circulate about him. There were a lot of negative rumors that started to circulate about him, but a lot of them actually were kind of collected in this book that came out in 2002.
About Freddie exclusively, or about the Crays, or about who?
It was about Freddie. It's about Jack the Stripper, but it was the one to like make the connection to say that they thought maybe it was Freddie. But I have a lot of problems with this, but to say some of the allegations, one of the allegations was that Freddie had been actually in a homosexual relationship with Ronnie Cray.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Not that, who was openly bisexual. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it would add a layer of complexity to that relationship.
Especially in that time frame.
It also started to be rumored that Freddie had killed 8 women and that he was about to be exposed as a stripper, so he killed himself instead. But this all comes from this one book from 2002, and it doesn't seem like there's any historic research to back it up.
I don't see it.
It doesn't seem like anybody thought that was a thing.
I have a question. 8 women? Is it the 8 women in question for the Jack the Stripper, or is this a separate 8 women?
It's just an amorphous. So the report was that the Crays said that Freddie had told them that he had killed 8 women, and the author of this 2002 book said, so obviously that must have been these 8 women.
And of course he died in 65, which is when Verger stopped.
Yeah,
So, but still pretty thin, I'd say.
I agree. And the other thing too is that in my reading about Freddie, though he had a brutal profession of boxing, I did not get the impression that he was overly brutal outside of the boxing ring. And it also didn't even seem like his boxing technique was that brutal. So I didn't get the sense that he was really prone to violence. So I just don't buy it.
The thing about it is the Jack the Stripper elections.
Well, but so I think that's the reason that I bring up the whole homosexual thing.
Well,
is that if you're, there's that commonly said thing where if you're trying to suppress a part of you, it'll come out in these like really weird, messed up ways. I don't buy it. Especially if he was in a homosexual relationship with someone, he's not denying it. He's in a relationship with someone,
but the point
even if it's outside of marriage.
The point that I'm making is that if you have violent, kinky sexual predilections, And if you're a guy who owns a nightclub, is a famous boxer and a celebrity, you're going to get a lot of you-know-what with women.
Yeah.
Probably.
There's going to be a lot of people coming in who would be happy to satisfy your desire.
Yeah.
Well, it's not just that, but also at some point, if somebody made these allegations, and some women are